Retro Hangover is supported via Patreon by listeners like you. We would especially like to thank patrons Lyle McCarnes, Tony G, Tom the Superhero, Stud Still Smash the Milkman, Raging Demon, Mast Keaton, Lucas from Game Over Hell, Ozzy Garcia, JC, Megan Caruso, Rick Firestone, Dave Jackson, Jenny E, Retro Overdrive, Soha the Emperor, Storm Beagle, Matt aka Stormageddon, Pete Ross and Van Fernal from Super Garbage Day, Randall Quiggle, Keith Gasper, the Retro Vixen, Eric Guess, Nomad from the Retro Wildlands podcast, Ash Events, Alan Bingham, Mike the Rep from Backbreaker Gaming, Ryan Player One, Alt, Low5 Alex, Renner Dreaming, Omi, Makeshift Money, and Sega Boy 7. Your continued engagement and generous donations are deeply appreciated.
Open your ears and crack some beers. You are listening to the most recent episode of Retro Hangover.
Hello, retro and classic gamers. Welcome to the podcast where we distribute dragons do dragoons during daring durations dating dainty dames. This is Retro Hangover. I am your co-host, Chris Copleen, with special guest Rick Firestone from Pixel Project Radio, a video game podcast. And, as always, your host, Shane Black Dick Monster Dragon Salter.
I don't even. I'm sorry. What was Black Monster Dick? Is that what we went with?
Yeah, Black Monster.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Sure.
It's relevant. Shane,
I know. It just feels like I just feel like that's a lot to live up to. I don't know.
Yeah, she would be very disappointed with you when she finds out that you don't like that name.
Who? Shanna?
No, I can't talk about that yet. We need to get spoilers come later. Not that much later, but they still come later.
She wants that black monster. Let me tell you what.
I think that would be hot. I don't want to give too much away, but welcome to the show, Rick.
Hey, fellas.
Good to have you here.
Yeah, it's nice to be back. I'm excited to be back talking about another JRPG. I think the last time I was here was Final Fantasy VI, and I don't want to give too much away, but this is also a JRPG that I like quite a bit.
That's good. Maybe we just every time we need to do a JRPG, we just need to tap you in. The Final Fantasy VI episode was really good. It was really received well, so it's good to have you back on for another one.
You know, I distinctly remember in that episode feeling bad that you and I kept talking and Shane was just like, oh, it sounds like you guys have done this before, because we had done it before on another podcast.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I feel bad for Shane, man.
Well, hopefully it doesn't end up that way again, right, Shane?
It will not be exactly the same as last time.
Oh, some off-mic conversations that we're alluding to that you have no understanding, listener. So kind of apologize, but kind of don't. Anyway, we are going to be doing a review of The Legend of Dragoon. And by the way, this was selected by patrons, nominated by Tony G, the Wolfman, and they all picked The Legend of Dragoon for us to play. So that's why we're doing this. So if you would like to vote on games that are nominated by our higher tier patrons, then you can do so by joining the Patreon. And we'll talk about that at the end because, shilling is for later. Anyway, we like to start the show by talking about the games that we have been playing lately. And as is tradition that we are wont to do, we start with our guest. Rick,
What games or game have you been playing lately?
Oh man, I've got a couple going. I've been better about not having too many going at one time, but also kind of not. I've kind of fallen back into that. I am finishing up a game called The Forgotten City right now, which started as a Skyrim mod and it kind of turned into its own thing. It's tough to talk about without giving spoilers away. So all I will say is there's a mystery involved and it's philosophical. So I'm loving it. I'm playing through Final Fantasy 1 as well for the first time ever. Some purists might not like that I'm doing it on the Pixel remaster, but it is what it is. I'm having a good time. So that's cool. I just recently started playing some Darkstalkers 1 and 2. I know, Chris, you and I have talked about that a little bit. I like fighting games quite a bit, so I've been playing through those just to sample what's out there. Still trying to find a kind of main fighting game. Those are the main ones right now. I'm also sort of in the middle of a playthrough of Kingdom Hearts 358 over 2 days on the 3DS, and I like it quite a bit. It's just show stuff is kind of gearing up, so I have to taper off the non-show stuff a little bit. But yeah, that's kind of the most of it. I will say this up front. I did not finish Legend of Dragoon, so that's kind of in the still playing category as well, if you count that. So shame on me. I accept your shame, but I do love it. I got into Disc 4 quite a bit, and it's been a blast. But yes, that's what I'm playing. Sorry, I feel like I'm already rambling. This isn't a good sign. Cut it. Ashton, cut it all. Cut it down.
You're doing very well. Do not apologize. You did a great synopsis right there. Normally, I like to inject and interrupt people when they talk about something that I hear that interests me. So that didn't happen, which is a positive, I think. But
Which means you weren't interested in anything he had to say.
No, I was, because I'm going to talk about his comments on Final Fantasy 1, because he's like, purists are going to be upset. And if you're a purist, like, I understand that. But if you're upset that like people are playing Final Fantasy 1 other than the original NES version, come on, you know better. You know better.
Not everyone else has to suffer like you did.
Well, no. I mean, yeah, the original NES version is a mess. So you're completely forgiven, Rick.
Well, here's the thing, too. In my defense, I am using the original score. I'm not doing the updated orchestral editions. They're fine, but I much prefer the originals. It comes with a CRT filter that's not amazing, but like I'm just kind of a sucker for all of those, even if they don't look super fantastic. But speaking of CRT, I fully admit that playing this on a CRT would be, in some respects, the way to go. I just finished up a playthrough of Super Mario 3 for the first time a couple weeks ago, and the entire time I was playing it, I was thinking, man, I wish I had an NES and I could just play this on a CRT. It would be so much better in every way. And I know, Final Fantasy being a JRPG has some other jank that, the Pixel remaster kind of fixes, but I admit that. I do. But, Final Fantasy 1, it's good. I'm having a good time. Dungeons and Dragons. I love it.
Hell yeah. And the thief isn't useless anymore in the Pixel remaster.
I think I picked a bad starting lineup.
What'd you pick?
I picked Red Mage, Black Mage, White Mage, and Monk.
Not the best.
Yeah, I'm struggling.
The warrior is pretty broken in that game. You almost need one. But as long as you're enjoying it, that's what's important. The monk is a glass cannon later on. You'll have fun with the monk.
Can't wait.
All right, Shane, how about yourself?
I don't know, man. I would just go with the full warrior party. Just go balls out.
That's what you're playing?
Yep, that's it.
Okay.
Yep, ball out warriors. Now on Steam.
Get on it.
No, honestly, I haven't really played much of anything. I've been doing the real life things, and that has mostly gotten in the way of playing anything other than attempting to get time in on Legend of Dragoon so I can actually talk about it semi-intelligently on this show today. But besides that, we were actually out of the country for a week, and we've got a bunch of other things going on. So, not a lot of time to put into games lately. So it's mostly just been squeezing in some Dragoon and then, the offhand mobile game when I get a few minutes to do something. But honestly, that's about it. Like, I haven't even had any time to put into Diablo anything, which is, that's a sign. That's a sign that I don't have any time if I can't even fit in Diablo. So there you go.
Maybe you're getting weaned off. The addiction is dying.
I hope not.
I'm here to support you, Shane. Diablo Anonymous.
Absolutely not.
Oh, well, I tried.
I will take it to my early grave.
I get it. You can quit anytime you want.
I can. I just choose not to.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's empowered, Chris.
Uh-huh. I believe you. Anyway, for myself, I have dedicated almost my entire life to try and finish this game. I don't hate you patrons. I just feel some ways about things. This isn't talking about the quality of the game. It's just that there was no time for anything else. Oh my God. And that was like, I think my final time was just over 60 hours. I did the extra stuff like an idiot. So that's kind of what I've been playing is this game for this episode and some behind the scenes stuff. I don't want to sound negative here because I do appreciate the fact that they willed this game into being. And I'm not at all bitter about the fact that we're going to have to play Persona 4 Golden later based off how much time I had to put into this. Not thinking about that at all, ever, or whatever. But like, I'm kind of thankful that we were supposed to record this in like real time a week before the day we're actually recording it, because that extra few days gave me time to finish it. If we recorded this on the original date, I would have not completed this game. That would not have happened. So I do have another game I can talk about, which is Rayman. I played Rayman for the Sega Saturn. That game is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. That is a super difficult game. What the hell? It's not nice. It's not a nice game. And it looks like a nice game. I mean, it's a very nice looking game. But it hates you. That game hates you. It hates everything about you. It hates your existence. It loves to see you die in the most creative of ways. And it doesn't even it doesn't even acknowledge how hateful it is. It's just kind of like, tee-hee, you died, ha ha ha. And it's just like, you want to continue? Have a good time, man. It's like the lost levels of Mario, like the real Super Mario Brothers 2, except never acknowledging that it wants to fuck you in like 50 different ways. That's Rayman.
Yeah.
Fuck you, Rayman.
I remember buying a physical copy of that from one of our local retro game stores and bringing it home and popping it in the old, I think I had the PlayStation. Yeah, I had the PlayStation version. I popped that in, and it's one of those moments where I was just like, you know, I didn't spend a lot of money on this, but I still kind of regret it. It was just, that game. Yeah, that thing is tough as nails. It does not care about your feelings at all.
No, and it has a presentation like you would want to give it to your 5-year-old, like a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever played the first one. I've only ever played The Great Escape. So what's that, number 2 on PS1?
I think, yeah. Like they had a weird naming convention for 2 and 3. Like Rayman 3 Arena and then like Rayman The Great Escape, which is, yeah, it's weird. But they get substantial, from what I understand, they get substantially better after that. Because I don't know if either of you have played Rayman Legends, but that game is probably the best 2D platformer I've ever played.
I have not gotten around to play that yet, no.
It's phenomenal. So like going back and seeing where it started, I'm just kind of like, ugh. Well, you got to start somewhere. And I can't even say it's technically bad. It's just very, very difficult. But that concludes our section about what games we've been playing today. It's now time to get into our game du jour, which is The Legend of Dragoon, the Final Fantasy VII killer? Final Fantasy killer? Well, we're going to find out. I don't know. How do I segue myself into the brief history here?
I don't know. Hold on. Let me go. I'll save you, Chris. I am here to the rescue.
Great.
Chris, I sure do want to hear the not entirely briefest, because I want good, cold-hearted information and facts and figures. But, you know, don't be too long because nobody has an attention span anymore. So I would like a semi-brief history of The Legend of Dragoon, please and thank you.
Many businesses strive to capitalize on current trends, and Sony is no exception. The role-playing genre, long popular in Japan, gained significant traction in the international market following the immense success of Final Fantasy VII. Naturally, Sony sought to create a game entirely under its own umbrella, investing substantial effort into the project. However, the story of The Legend of Dragoon begins slightly before the Final Fantasy VII phenomenon. Development commenced in 1996, alongside other notable projects like Ape Escape and Eco, with a small but talented team. Shuhei Yoshida served as the game's producer, while Yasuyuki Hasebe, renowned for his work on Super Mario RPG's battle system, led the development and storytelling. Over time, the team expanded to over 100 full-time staff with a budget of 16 million, both large numbers for the time and system. The Legend of Dragoon largely adhered to traditional JRPG elements, but introduced distinctive features, such as a battle system requiring a player engagement and limiting character magic to items or transformations. Initially, the team decided against using CGI movies, a trend at the time, but ultimately included them, resulting in a 4-disc epic release. Sony announced the game in September of 1999 and released it in Japan on December 2nd of the same year. The North American version, which included difficulty balances and was considered the complete version by Shuhei Yoshida, was released on June 13th, 2000, followed by the European launch on January 19th, 2001. The game received lukewarm reviews with a Metacritic aggregate score of 74%, as some critics found it generic and disliked the precision-based battle mechanics. Despite this, it performed reasonably well commercially, selling around 1.9 million units worldwide, with nearly 1 million of those sales coming from North America alone. In the years since its release, The Legend of Dragoon has not seen a sequel or a remake, but has been made available on the PS3, PS4, and PS5 through Sony's digital distribution platforms. This enduring presence highlights the game's lasting appeal, even if it never achieved the same level of acclaim as some of its contemporaries. And that is your brief history of The Legend of Dragoon.
Thank you, Chris, for that appropriately length history. I very much appreciate that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know how we want to necessarily open this right up, but I might just drop maybe this is not a hot take at all, but did anybody else get the feeling that even though the timing might have been slightly off, that this game just really fucking wants to be FF7? Like, did anybody else get that?
Go ahead, Rick.
Sorry, Chris. So off mic, I had mentioned that I just found an article today about this that was published today, and I'm so glad that you said that, Shane. I found this article on Games Radar Plus. You know, Google is kind of shit now, right? Like with the AI and everything, it's terrible. But sometimes they still
Yes.
recommend me, like on my phone, it'll recommend me articles that I might want to read, and this was one of them. There was a time, I don't know who the streamer is, Kyle Bossman, however you pronounce that name, was streaming this. And Yoshida himself crashed the stream because he's just so passionate about the game. And in the stream, Bozeman suggested, like, yeah, this was like Sony's FF7. And Bozeman said, no one told us to make any kind of game. This is just what we wanted to make. And he goes on to say, like, yeah, we were aware of FF7 and like the beautiful pre-rendered backgrounds and the CG cutscenes. Everybody was like, wow, that's amazing. But he said that, you know, they didn't poach Hasebe from Square. He just applied and they were like, what kind of game do you want to make? And Hasebe said, I want to make a JRPG. So it was like, I get the feeling that Yoshida doesn't want it to be known as the FF7. I get the feeling they just really wanted to make a JRPG because that's what they were passionate about. You know what I mean?
Mm. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and that was kind of how I was going to answer Shane's question. Is when this game came out in 2000, I think that was the general feeling that a lot of people had about the game. It was trying to be Final Fantasy VII. That it got like a try-hard Final Fantasy VII. That was the reputation at the time. Upon playing it now, it's not. Like, it's very identifiably different in a lot of ways. The only similarity that I could really see with Final Fantasy VII is maybe the character model design choices. And we can get to that in graphics, but aside from that, like, battles are different. Yes, you have 3 people in a battle like Final Fantasy VII does, but so did a lot of RPGs at the time. It wasn't a fantasy setting, which deviated from Final Fantasy VII. And I guess you could also say it had like the CG graphics that the Final Fantasy series were doing, but also CGI movies were not uncommon. I mean, you could argue that it was just like Namco, because Namco did that a lot for their fighting games, especially Tekken, incorporating CG cutscenes. So it's not like a lot of these elements that a lot of people identify with Final Fantasy VII when looking at the Legend of Dragoon, that they weren't uncommon. It's just that a lot of people identify with that if you're a JRPG fan, like, oh, it has pre-rendered backgrounds. Well, so did Resident Evil. Oh, it has weird character models. Well, a lot of JRPGs did that didn't have the budget that maybe a Final or talent that Final Fantasy did. Oh, it has whatever. It has 3 people in a battle system. So did a lot of JRPGs. But if you actually put them side by side, they couldn't be as different as they could be. There's just not enough similarities to remotely compare them in any sense, other than being an RPG.
I think if you dive deeper into it, yes, I would agree. I think at like surface level / first blush, though, like, I can definitely see why someone would see a lot of similarities. And I'm also basing this on, like, I was playing it and my wife was like sitting next to me and she looked over and I had just finished the Dragon Nest area and the sort of like set piece background for that, right, where you like climb up through the hole in the ceiling, that she looked at that and she was like, is this FF7? And I'm like, no, it's Legend of Dragoon. And she's like, wow, okay. She's like, and this is coming from, by the way, the person that FF7's like one of her favorite games ever. And she was like, that background looks a lot like the area where you fight like Sephiroth, and like there's a lot of similarities in like the art style. And she's like, that's just really weird that it's so similar. So I'm basing it off of that. Like, someone who super is into FF7 without being prompted was like, is that FF7?
Yeah. I mean, that's a common perception, especially at the time. I mean, there's really no avoiding it. And that's the reputation it gained and that it held. I think it still holds to this day.
And for the record, I don't think that's a bad thing.
No.
Like, I'm not bringing it up to like disparage the game in any way. I'm just saying that I guess I'm not alone in that assessment. It seems like it was a very popular thing, like, at least contemporaneously.
I mean, it was considered to be a bad thing by the critics.
You Are Not Alone, the famous Final Fantasy VII track. I think, I think the comparisons to Final Fantasy VII, yes, partly because it was hot on the heels of that in some ways. I think it's largely because this to me feels like a very 90s JRPG. I know it didn't come out in the 90s technically, but it embodies that in every sense of the word. And when you think of quintessential 90s JRPGs, Final Fantasy VII is the one that most people think of. And a big part of it is because of those gorgeous CG cutscenes and those beautiful pre-rendered backgrounds. Like, I'm sorry, Xenogears, I love you so much, but the pre-rendered backgrounds are phenomenal. Like this and FF8 and FF9, also Super Mario RPG, if I'm remembering correctly, that was such of the time.
Yes.
And it's part of why I love this genre so much is because of this era. But you are right, Chris. I totally agree with you. Once you start looking at what this game is, I mean, the big distinction is sci-fi versus fantasy. This is much closer to something like not a Dungeons and Dragons kind of fantasy, but a fantasy-esque setting. And notably, it doesn't have those environmental and socio-political themes that FF7 has that makes it so special, right? I mean, it's not just a game about going after big bad Sephiroth. If you can believe it, there's a little more there.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't shy away from socio-political conversations either. I mean, there is that. It does go over those as well. It's just not like environmental. It's a different kind of conversation. but it's there. Like there is that storytelling narrative that is much more than, pure black and white, go bad guy, evil guy. It has its complications, which can be appreciated, especially towards the end of it. And we'll get into that in the plot. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here. But I do want to hear the personal experiences. Rick, I'll save your experiences for last, because it sounds like you played this game earlier than both myself and Shane. So Shane, what are your personal experiences, and do they extend beyond finding out we had to play it for this episode?
Funny you should bring that up. No.
Okay.
No, they don't. Yeah. It was up on the voting block, and then I was like, yeah, that sure is a game. And then it won, and I was like, well, that sure is a game that I'm probably not going to finish. And here we are. That's about it.
Okay, sweet. Thank you, Shane. Appreciate it.
No problem. Yeah.
So, I mean, mine's not too much more involved. See, I was aware of this game when it came out in 2000, but there were a lot of things that kept me away from checking it out. One was because I became a massive Sega Dreamcast fanboy. And so my attention was firmly in line with the Sega Dreamcast. That's where my heart was. And if I was going back to the PlayStation to play a game, it would be an RPG. But if it was an RPG, it had to dethrone my BFF Squaresoft. And the kind of the problem is that it was that criticism that was very loud at the time, that this was just trying too hard to be Final Fantasy and didn't have its own identity, and that you didn't need to check it out. Just play a Final Fantasy game. That's all this game was trying to be. I wish I had a different state of mind back then. I was also 15, so who knows? But I'd never checked it out. And then I was at a Goodwill in either 2009 or 2010, and I saw the game for $2.50 behind a counter. And I was like, well, I have to buy this. And so I bought it. And that's the version I played for today. Unfortunately, it was one of those games I did not take great care of. But fortunately, I did have a digital copy on my PS3 that I could transfer the save data over to cover the parts that I couldn't quite get through. In fact, when I made it to the end, I was able to see the last scene, but the credits wouldn't load. So it's pretty spotty. There are like a few spots where the disc itself, the top of the disc is kind of scratched off, so I can't play all of it all the way through. But yeah, I waited over 10 years to play a game that I bought in a Goodwill for $2. I think if I played it back then at the time, I wouldn't have to have as many problems, unfortunately. But that's where we are. So that's my personal experiences with it. Never played it until recently, but I was well aware of it. How about yourself, Rick?
Yeah, so when I was a kid, and to place myself age-wise, I was in 4th grade when Kingdom Hearts came out on PS2. So a little bit younger than the two of you, not by a ton, but just a little bit. But whenever I was in elementary school, I had one friend in particular, and the two of us were really into turn-based video games and JRPGs. Like, we could not get enough of them. And we would very frequently trade our games back and forth to just borrow them, but also to help each other get through various times, various battles. That's where the infamous story of him renaming Garnet Sacktap on my FF9 save. And I cried a lot. But one game that he had that I never had was Ark the Lad. And one game that I had that he never had was Legend of Dragoon. We would trade all games back and forth, blah, 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 but he would never trade me Ark the Lad, so I never traded him Legend of Dragoon. So we never got to cross-pollinate in that way. I didn't have like a special attachment to it or anything, but I do remember really, really liking it, largely because of the characters and the battle system. And, of course, my JRPG life at the time was like FF7 through 10 and this and Xenosaga, so like the beautiful backgrounds and set dressings, that was just normal to me. That's what I knew. So I was like, oh yeah, this is great. This is video games, man. But yeah, the characters as a kid and the battle system were what captured my attention the most back then. And, my feelings have changed a little bit as I've gotten older. I did not make it very far as a kid in this game. I did not make it into disc 2 even. So that was nice to really get into the game and the story and meet new characters and such. But so technically I played it as a child, not all that much, but here we are.
Sweet. So I'm glad that, at least you played it growing up. Where you weren't, I know we're kind of doubling back a little bit. Like, you weren't affected by any of the Final Fantasy comparison D-hype at all, it sounds like.
I was much too young to be
D-hype,
thinking about video games in that way, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah, that's 100% fair. But now that our stories are done, it's time to turn to the story of the game. By the way, I don't care if anyone spoils this game, so there's a warning. Not that I don't care about spoilers, but if anyone wants to talk spoilers, we are going to. So if you don't want this game spoiled, come back later or skip ahead. I don't know how long we're going to talk. So that's why I'm just saying, like, spoiler time. Okay, before we get into this conversation proper, I'm going to do what I've been doing for a little while now and read straight out of the manual if the manual has a story. So here's what the manual tells us about the story of the legend of Dragoon. The legend was born 10,000 years ago and began with the divine tree. Nothing could compare to its mystical powers. It is said that this massive yet graceful entity gave birth to all living things. One after another, races of plants, animals, and unique beings fell from its branches and life spilled forth over to the land. The 105th race, born of the tree, was the powerful dragons. These powerful winged destroyers would strike terror into any... This is way too long, if I'm being honest. Let me see if I can summarize this. This is just... It goes on for a while. So it says that the dragons were the 105th race. The humans were the 106th race, who are peaceful beings who live quiet lives. And the 107th race was the Winglies. And they enslaved everybody. There, I'm summarizing it. The spirit of the divine tree coursed through all of its offspring. The races took their place on Earth, filling the desolation with lushness and activity. I'm very much summarizing this, by the way. The Winglies enslaved everybody. The humans were not happy about it. The humans and the dragons teamed up and overthrew the Winglies. Then a new bad person came about, and that's stopped by the Black Monster, who runs around and kills everybody for reasons unknown. What's going on with this Black Monster? And what's going on with this moon that never sets? I don't think that's in here, though. But there, I'm not spending... It's longer than the brief history. So, getting into the plot, Rick, what did you think of it and, like, the developments, stuff like that? I know you said the characters, so maybe we should start there. What did you think of the characters?
Well, if you don't mind, one thing that just hit me hearing you summarize that, beautifully summarized, by the way, so succinct, we summarize beautifully around here.
Thank you.
I am reading
summary.
a book right now called Mythos by Stephen Fry, and it's just all about the Greek gods and Greek mythology. And it just hit me, like, I was obsessed with that stuff as a kid, and I still love it now. This kind of reads and it's set narratively kind of like a Greek story, like a Greek god story, Greek mythology.
Oh, really?
Kind of, if you think about it, like the tree giving birth to the different races and like a titanic battle, like the Titanomachy, the Greek Titans and everything. It kind of reads like that to me. I don't know. Maybe there's something there, maybe not. Maybe, who knows? Anyways, going to the characters, I absolutely can see how folks look at the characters and the writing in general and think it's pretty generic. I have a feeling we're going to talk about the localization, so I'm not going to say anything about that too much, but the characters definitely are fairly generic. Like with the exception of maybe 2 or 3, they're just kind of placeholders for the story. That's not to say that they're bad or like I don't like them, but it's not a character-driven game, you know? It's very much a story game. They want to tell a story. It's not about the character interactions, or at least that's not how it's presented. I don't know, and I do miss that. I do love a good game that has deep character interaction. Honestly, sometimes I prefer that to an actual story, but this ain't it. You know, you're not going to be thinking back to all of Dart's personality traits or all of Lavitz's personality traits. No. And I mean, I remember that he's a mama's boy, and that's about it.
Yeah, I would largely agree with your takes on the characters. I don't particularly remember anything memorable about Dart per se, other than he goes from, Shauna's my baby sister to, I totally love Shauna now. I think that's the most development I saw with Dart. There is a turn when the Black Monster reveal happens, and it's kind of strange that he's not as emotionally distraught.
That whole reveal falls so flat.
Yeah.
It's like they just act like it never happened.
It happens at the end of disc 3, And it's like disc 4 starts. And like, oh, okay, this is like he's gonna have a resolution here. There's gonna be a reckoning. There's gonna be this whole entire emotional outburst. And it's just like, oh yeah, the black monster's dead now. And it's like, no, like what? Like that's it? You just had a sword duel with her and that's it. Like that's the long and the short of it. Okay. This was your entire motivation in life, and now you're just like, whatever. All right.
But it's the power of boners, Chris. He's got Shauna now.
No, it's not even that. So okay. This is okay. I already said we're going to talk spoilers, so here it is. Shauna is the god of destruction, and the black monster, it travels around the world every 108 years to kill the god of destruction. Shauna had a twin sister, and as soon as the god of destruction is born, like the black monster, who is Rose, goes and kills the god of destruction as a baby, and everyone that's in their path. But because she had a twin sister, she killed her infant twin sister and not her.
That's a total Greek myth, man.
That's a pretty colossal fuck up.
Yes. And then when this is revealed to Dart, who's been traveling with Rose this entire time, he just kind of shrugs it off. And so like his entire arc is ruined, especially when you find out like the big bad guy is his dad that's possessed by the actual big bad guy who is being helped by. It's like the whole entire bad guy situation is just kind of weird too. So this plot's kind of a mess, and I'm going to go all over the place with this. And I'll stick with
I guess
Dart.
if there's one thing we can rely on, it's JRPGs having absolutely batshit convoluted plots.
Well, let me stick with the characters. Because that's where it got started. I said arc. Dart's arc is kind of muted. It's very muted. He doesn't really have any defining traits. There's nothing particularly special about him. Albert is an intriguing character, but beyond him just being a very intelligent king, there's not much more to him. You have your typical cute girl in Meru. You have your typical perverted old man kind of he has an interesting past. He does, but I don't think there's a good resolution for him really either, especially considering that his daughter is Dart's mother, which is alluded to, but like they never really have a resolution to that either. And that's with Haschel. And then Kongol is just Kongol, and he's there. I really think the star of the show is Rose. Rose has the best arc. Rose has the most depth. Rose is the best character in this game. And when you really think about it, you are playing Rose's story. In a lot of ways, this is kind of like Final Fantasy X in the fact that the protagonist is actually the vessel for the person whose story you are actually experiencing. Because, I mean, the entire reason this is all going on is kind of Rose's origin story and what she has had to go through in order to see this through to completion. It's just all told through the kind of perspective and control of Dart, unfortunately or fortunately. But I loved Rose as a character. She is so well developed. And I forgot to mention Miranda, but I think the game does too. So there's that. Shane, what have you picked up in your time playing?
Yeah, I mean, all right. So the one thing that, and I guess this could be like hand waved as like, well, that is destiny that brought them together. But I just think it's contrived that like the fact that you learn, right, that Dart has the power to become a Dragoon. It's like this very rare sacred thing that he's like, oh, I can attune to this stone and I go super wing mode, and that's so crazy. Mm-hmm. And then like almost everyone around him is also like, oh my God, I'm also a special person. Like, wow, what are the fucking odds?
But I think they earn it. I think it's earned. Yes, it's cheesy, but I think it's earned.
I don't know. I mean, the fact that like you murk that dude, and then the other guy that you're with, what the hell's his name? Starts with an L.
Lavitz.
Lavitz. There we go. I wanted to say like lascivious. Anyway, Lavitz. He's just like, oh shit, I can do this now. Like, I don't know, man. It struck me as very like Deus Ex Machina. Like, this is a very convenient way to move the plot forward of like, oh, all of the people you've come across also happen to be able to be Dragoons. That's super weird.
It's very 90s Saturday morning cartoon, right? Like, I mean, when somebody when they need to advance the story and introduce a character, they just kind of put it in there. You know, it's Chris, you had referred to them in private messages as Power Rangers, and it's kind of like that. You know, a game that does a similar thing in recent memory is Metaphor Refantasio, but whenever they get down into the why of each of these characters awakening to their power, it's a little bit deep. Well, it's a lot of bit deeper. And more justified. That's kind of like the theme with this story is they planted a lot of really interesting seeds, but none of them got enough shade or water or sunlight. They just weren't cultivated and they don't end up going anywhere. And, you know, that combined with the really, really rocky localization, it's just what this game, Legend of Dragoon, reminds me of the Star Wars prequels. Insofar as there's so much missed potential. They're fun for what they are, but they could have been so much better. And so too with Legend of Dragoon.
I think the way they do it is actually interesting. I became intrigued. Maybe it's because I have a smooth brain. But I think that, you know, when I think about why is Dart the Red Dragoon? Why is he the Red Power Ranger? Because he wears red, obviously.
Yeah, he's Jason.
Yeah, but you find out that his father was the Red Dragoon in the Dragon campaign from 11,000 years ago. Then you're like, okay, well, what about Shano? Why does she have the white dragon power? I have to have dragon there or I'm going to get canceled. Because she's the Moonchild. And why is Miranda the next Dragoon? I don't know. The game doesn't either. So there's that. Obviously, Rose is the Black Dragoon all the way from back in the day. And she just never lost her power. She's immortal. She's wearing a choker that keeps her alive. Haschel is connected to Dart through his daughter, also Dart's mother, which I'll admit was not, I don't think, adequately explained their relationship. It's kind of danced around, and it's like you're told that that's the case. I wish that was better fleshed out. Albert is kind of the same case as Miranda. Is just he inherits the Dragoon spirit from Lavitz, and he's just a very powerful person in the kingdom. That's the long and the short. And he's the brother of the emperor that's trying to unite the kingdom too. There's a little plot there. Meru's the Wingly that wants to leave her town. So like that kind of makes sense to an extent. And she gets the power from another Wingly. And then you have
don't forget Kongo.
Kongo, that makes no sense. He makes no sense. That's why I don't know. But I think like in a lot of ways, like most of them make sense. Most of them do. And I like the layers that are put on there, and I like how it is explained. But yeah, you're not wrong, Rick, in the sense that it does feel like a Saturday morning cartoon, especially when all the characters are color coded with their dragon spirit color. Like it's too obvious. Like, oh, there's a new character in my party. They don't have a Dragoon spirit yet. What color are they? Oh, they're wearing all purple. Oh, okay. I know it's going to happen now. And I can understand Shane's perspective. Like the suspense of disbelief is kind of eroded when you're like, why is everybody becoming a Dragoon? It's kind of lame. But at the same time, like it could be much worse.
Oh, totally. I think the pacing and the telegraphing are the big things that I meant when I said like Saturday morning cartoon.
Right.
I do agree with you. Some of them are justified quite well. I think it's hilarious that Kongo just buys his and it's like, yeah, sure. All right, buddy, you can join in too. I love that. I think it's hilarious. But, you know, I think I'm trying to it seems like the Dragoon spirits jump around a little bit too frequently and too quickly, too coincidentally. I don't know. I never minded it though. I think something to keep in mind if you're going to play this game is that it's not trying to be a deep experience like something like one of the Final Fantasies or, you know, Metaphor Refantasio or whatever you want to compare it to. I don't think it's trying to be that. It really does. I don't want to be disparaging by calling it a Saturday morning cartoon, But and especially because some of this stuff, like, I mean, you could compare it to Greek mythology like I did. You can look at it like a religious allegory with the birth and the rebirth and the re-death of a lifetime. It plays around with cool ideas, but I think at the end of the day, because of the presentation and the pacing and the way it's told and the characters and all of it as a concise package, it just feels like it's something to be enjoyed. You know, I almost said enjoyed and not thought about. That's not what I mean. Again, I'm not trying to be like, I love this game, but it's, I turn my brain off when I play it, you know, like it's just fun.
Yeah. Definitely the same. No, not like, I think you're all right. Like, one thing I do appreciate a lot about it is that this game really wants to establish lore. It wants to build its world. It wants to build its history. Because, I mean, how many segments do you get about the Dragon campaign through disc 1 and 2? About them just telling everything that happened. I think you're told it like 3 or 4 times in different ways. This game is obsessed with its foundation, its background, and its setting. It seems like it's more concerned about the world itself and how the world was built rather than the present. And using that foundation as to what resolution you're trying to chase. I also think one of the things that my very basic knowledge of Norse mythology is that's kind of there as well. You have a tree of life, which establishes all life, and you have a defined ending event like Ragnarok. Like once the final species is born, then the world will end and it'll be created anew. And the other cool thing about it, too, is that when you go through all of these cutscenes that explain the lore, kind of going to your point about Greek mythology and how it borrows from various mythologies, is that it does borrow like mythological artwork pertaining to religion or just various international artwork that is closely affiliated with religion and religious storytelling within its cutscenes. You'll have a variety of different explanation, a variety of those in order to tell the plot through its art, which I think is just, I think that's brilliant and how they orchestrate that. It's like it's truly an international event across many cultures on this planet that they're living on to explain their history and what is important to them. I don't know if you caught that as well.
I could see that. Yeah, I think you're right on the money.
Shane, anything?
So I'm curious because you guys have brought it up a couple of times, and I could be wrong, or maybe I'm just really forgiving. I think maybe the PlayStation Store version of this game has a fixed translation because it wasn't bad. So I want to hear more about this, like, because that's a pretty big part of the delivery of the plot and everything. And by all accounts, it sounds like it's pretty awful.
Rick, go ahead, because I think it's awful too. I'll let you take this.
Yeah, it's really not great. I mean, and the tragedy is you don't get any cool zingers like "this guy are sick" or "my father, you mean my dad?" Like you don't get any quotable goodness from it. It's really sloppy.
No.
I will admit, for this playthrough, when it came to the PlayStation Store on PS5, I actually bought it. And I was immediately upset with myself because I was like, I remember not liking the translation on the PlayStation Store. I don't know if it's the same as original hardware, but I will say when I first started this for the show, I did emulate a little bit on the original hardware. I got frustrated with the translation, so I found a ROM hack that has a fixed translation. And even with fixed translation, like it just makes everything. I mean, everything is better, but it really highlights that the writing is just kind of fine. The problem with the translation in the original release, the original North American release, is that things are just weirdly circularly explained, like tautologically strange. Like they will say something and elaborate on it within the same sentence like they never said it before. There are other things that are obvious if you're a native English speaker, like just grammar being very strange or syntax being weird. I think this is larger than just a localization issue, but I kind of recommend playing this for a few reasons. Emulate it if you can, rather than original hardware. I think also padding on the load times is an issue, which, Chris, I'm excited to hear you talk about.
Yeah. I'm just going to stick with the story here. I'll get to load times. Actually, I didn't think they're that bad, being completely honest. The battles, different story. But In terms of the translation here, how can I put it? It's like when they translated it, they were very literal in what every character was trying to say. And the only other game that really gave me this feeling, like where characters feel like they're supposed to have a more emotional response, and it's more matter of fact and clearly stated, is like Wild Arms 2. Wild Arms 2 does that for me too. It just felt like when there was more emotional, when it felt like the character should have been saying something more with more emotional gravitas. Like it could have been worded differently. It came off as something that was like someone would say if they just didn't care. That's the feeling I got. Like it was too plainly stated. It felt devoid of any character. It felt devoid of any life. And I think like in 2024, so last year as we're recording this, there was this big debate about what a localization is and what makes a localization good. You know, this kind of started with Working Designs, and it took a lot of other companies to kind of catch up, get to the same sort of standard that we have now in terms of what is a good localization and what's a bad localization. And one of the things that you saw a lot of people saying was, well, you didn't directly translate this. I think this game feels like an example of why you don't directly translate things. It feels hollow. It doesn't feel right. Like reading it, I don't get out of it what I think I should be. It feels like a very rudimentary effort in getting the overall point across. It does eventually, later on. Like I thought, like the story pieces where, you know, the Dragoons from 1,000 years ago, when you have to send them to hell or, you know, separate them from the mortal world. Like the way that those stories were delivered were very good. It almost feels like for a lot of the game, they were playing warm up until the end and they kind of figured out what they needed to do, which is, I don't know if that's surprising or unsurprising. It just felt like they got better as the game went on. But those early parts, man, they were painful for me. It felt like they were missing so much context or not providing subtleties or things that English speaking people would say in a manner that was suggestive that like the language wasn't directly saying.
Well, I was just double checking while you were talking about that too. And evidently the PlayStation Store version does not feature an updated translation. It is the same as the original PS1 release. Evidently that one seems to be just a direct port of the PS1 Classics version that was previously available on PS3, PSP, and Vita. So no real changes. So I guess, I don't know, I guess maybe I'm taking away from that I didn't get the sense that the translation was quite as awful. Like I was expecting like just horrendous, like English and stuff like that. And that wasn't really the case. Although I can kind of see where you're coming from on some of the more like, not monotone, but more like just sort of very flat delivery of lines that probably should have been more emotionally charged. Like I could see that for sure.
It comes down to that idea, like you were saying, that debate that got brought up by Unicorn Overlord and Metaphor, where people on Twitter that don't even speak Japanese get involved and have loud opinions. It's translating. Localization is an art. It's not a mechanical process. And say what you want about Victor Ireland. Shout out to Retrograde Amnesia. Amazing JRPG podcast. They're covering Lunar right now, and they keep a scrotal count, which is like a script corruption, some acronym that is scrotal because scrotal's funny, for every like ABBA joke that Victor Ireland forced in there, or every unnecessary sex joke and things like that. Ridiculous, an absurd number. But say what you want about Victor Ireland, at least, I mean, his work has a personality to it, and this doesn't feel like that. It feels like what you were saying, a kind of machine translation almost. It doesn't have that character. It doesn't have the artistry behind it, and it absolutely does fall flat. You're entirely right. It doesn't have the subtlety or the verve, or it feels so flat and one-dimensional. And I mean, this is a great example of why localization is important and why guys like Alexander O. Smith do such amazing work on things like Vagrant Story. That didn't that come out around the same time as this and just had a fucking stellar localization?
Yeah. Yes. And just compare this to like anything from Square at this time. Like once Square got past the Final Fantasy VII hump and Final Fantasy Tactics, Saga Frontier, and that batch of games, like you can compare this to Final Fantasy VIII and Final Fantasy VIII just in terms of its delivery and character. For as batshit crazy as that story is, Final Fantasy VIII blows this out of the water.
Yeah.
It's not even comparable. And it just feels, I think the best way I could just TLDR this is this game feels like it was translated by Google. Like they put the entire script in Google Translate and then put it on the screen for you. Now, I know it's a little bit more complicated than that, but that's the general feeling I get from it. Moving on into the general plot itself, I do want to talk about the villains. I know we've kind of talked about the plot. There's really not much more to the plot that I brought up. And Rick, if you want to get more into it, you can. Do I want to go to the villains? Very briefly, I do want to say it does have a very kind of simplified political, socioeconomic, whatever the case might be, trying to stance, because the Winglies are essentially like the overbearers and they're trying to decide where the Winglies' place in history is, because they pretty much enslaved all peoples, all creatures throughout the planet. And something that is discussed is how Meru has to come to terms with that, how your characters have to come to terms with how they're essentially, for lack of a better term, fulfilling, trying to understand what the Winglies' purpose is and why ultimately they were staving off the end of the world, because they did that. They ensured that the final species could not be created, even though, they were evil, and it turns out it was for selfish reasons. But I think a lot of that commentary was fairly well delivered, even though it's like surface level. It's kind of like Baby's first political theory commentary, but I think it's still not bad for what it is trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I suppose I agree. Maybe I turned my brain off too much whenever I was playing this. I didn't think about a lot of this whenever I was going through. Mm-hmm. Oh, maybe I'm the problem. Oof, I'm putting myself out there for criticism.
Oh no. Do you remember the part where you're going into the old capital of the Winglies?
Yeah.
And they're like discussing how the Winglies used to view the other species. And this gets deeper. I don't know if you made it to this part where you have to go find the 3 signets. And each one of these locations you go to has some sort of significance and explains the history of the Winglies and how they viewed their place in the dominion of species. So like one of them is the city of laws. I think it's called Xanatos. Like laws are just treated as a commodity. Like you go to the law factory to create a law, and in order to do so, you have to put in a proposition, and then you have to take the law and you go to like another law center where it gives you a license in order to launch the law. And then you go to the law launcher, and the law launcher then takes your law, delivers to the appropriate place. And that's their entire process for creating laws, because their entire mindset behind laws is, how do we use this to our advantage to suppress all the other creatures beneath us? But at the same time, it's just like, they're like, laws mean nothing to them and they can just change them as they see fit. And they kind of go through the entire society and how they functioned and how they controlled everybody else and just what the past was like.
I just feel like a law launcher is something that should be in Judge Dredd.
This sounds great. I
feel less bad now because I definitely did not make it to that part. I didn't notice it because I didn't get there.
Mm-hmm. Fair point. And I think that a lot of the plot gets a lot better like once you get to disc 4.
And
I think a lot of, yeah.
You had mentioned the end of disc 3 and like that whole big reveal. One thing that I did appreciate about this, while it sounds like this doesn't happen, but what I was hoping to see more of in disc 4 is like when you get to disc 3 and everything is revealed, how the Winglies are the 107th fruit of the tree of life, and the 108th is essentially the demiurge that is going to destroy this current existence to bring about a new utopia. And Lloyd, the person that we've been chasing this entire time, the person that we've seen as this malicious, evil villain that will do nothing, stop at nothing to cut down everything we hold dear. He was just doing his job because he wants to see a utopia. He wants to get to the divine afterlife, essentially. The way it's presented, and this could be down to translation, I'm fully admitting this, but the way it's presented is like, yeah, okay, this God wants to destroy the world because that's always been the plan. That's been his divine will since the beginning, because it's going to bring about a new and better utopia that, you could be reborn into in a cosmic sort of sense. It's going to be a place beyond humanity, like that sort of divine, everlasting afterlife that's kind of beyond existence, that sort of thing. It's not just a mwahaha, we're going to destroy the world, even though that's kind of how Dart reacts to it. It's not that at all. And when I got to that point, I'm thinking, okay, this has some subtlety. This has some nuance. There's a gray area here. We can have some in-depth discussion on, what constitutes a divine will. Should we pursue a divine will? Right. How does religion and faith and mythology fall into our world? Is God truly dead? Did we kill him? Whatever. But it sounds like it doesn't actually go that deep, and
not really.
Maybe it's just those seeds that were planted and once again didn't get the sunlight and water to grow. I don't know. That's unfortunate, because there's so much here that could make this story really, really great. It's just, maybe they didn't have the time, or maybe they didn't have the skill or the resources. I don't know, but it didn't happen, and that's a shame.
I mean, at the very end, it depends how you view, what is this, Elmer Fudd Wingley. The ultimate guy.
Melbu Frama?
I can't remember his name. Firma.
Or something
Melbu
like that.
Frama. I called him Elmer Fudd. But anyway, Melbu Frama, which is weird because maybe it's a mistranslation, but he did everything he could in order to prevent the arrival of the 108th species that would destroy the world and give it a rebirth through the divine tree. And then at the end, it becomes like, how dare you try to defy the will of Soa, the name of the divine tree. Essentially, he's saying like fate is that the world will be reborn. And in the final boss, the phases, like it goes through the various generations of Earth or the world that they live on. So like it goes up to the 6th or 7th generation. And those are the name of the boss phases. They're not like phase 1, phase 2, they're generational, and they go through different phases of what the planet looked like during those generations. So it could have been a mistranslation. It could have been that we missed a lot on what they're trying to accomplish, but essentially it does just ask the question of, what is divine fate, and should you challenge divine fate? And ultimately, it's like, yeah, fuck it, why not? We don't want everyone to die. Like, what's the point? But it seems like the villain is more trying to bring in the recreation of the world. To what purpose? Who knows? But once he is assuming that he is going to play the role of God, he has no issue with doing that. So there is that. I do want to talk about Lloyd and the villains, because it gets too complicated. You mentioned Lloyd. Lloyd does come back in the final battle and then dies. So he dies like twice. Did people like Lloyd? Do you think he's a good villain? I think he's kind of crap. Sephiroth wannabe. That's where I can draw like the Final Fantasy VII parallel. Like they really wanted a Sephiroth, and they tried and failed.
I don't know, Shane. Did you meet Lloyd?
I was trying to think. I was like, man, this guy sounds real bad. I'm glad I didn't come across him.
Oh God,
man. Okay. Like we didn't really talk about the pacing, but like the pacing isn't this game's strong suit. But
no.
I'm surprised that you didn't meet Lloyd within the first 12 hours. I mean, I'm not surprised, but like, wow, 12 hours to go without meeting Lloyd is kind of nutty. But pacing in this game is weird. I don't really think Lloyd is any great shakes. I mean, I'm struggling to remember his personality in any way. He kind of just buckles whenever we get to the reveal at disc 3 that it's not really as simple as just, a new utopia, and he's been getting used this whole time. I don't really think Lloyd is all that terrific.
No.
He is kind of a Sephiroth clone too, like white hair and everything, huh?
And it's like, well, he's a Wingley, because he is a Wingley, and all the Wingleys have silver hair, which, yeah, that's part of their trope. But that's how they kind of try to write off. But it feels like they wanted a Sephiroth, They tried too hard and failed. The next villain, of course, is Dart's father, whose name is Zieg, who keeps on being referred to as Emperor Diaz. He's actually Melbu Frama possessing Dart's father. So you get another bad guy swap. They're like, why is Zieg doing this? And it's like, he's not. Oh, there's weird things. And the plot gets way too complicated and convoluted later on with the whole entire Signet thing. I think, Rick, you were talking off mic about how you lost the plot in that village. I think we already mentioned that, when it just could have been simplified. I don't know. I think that at this point, unless we have anything else to say about the villains, speaking of pacing, we've beat up the story quite a bit. Is there anything you wanted to add, Shane? Anything in the 12 hours you found?
Yes. Winglies is a terrible name.
Yeah,
it is. I agree. There could have been a lot of better things. I also think like the relationship between the humans and the dragons it was kind of not appropriately explained, but I don't know. Too deep. I would need like to do an in-depth kind of story by story podcast for this, because we've been at this for over an hour. But this next section hopefully will not be an hour. It could be, but we're going to get into the meat of this game, and it sounds like both of you liked it very much, which is the gameplay. So just to basically give a quick overview of the gameplay before I kick it over to either one of you, is that yes, this looks like your typical sort of a Japanese role-playing game, or just at the time, as we called them, role-playing games. You have 3 people per battle, and you have your typical fight, item, defend, escape commands, and you can attack enemies. But what differs is that, well, defending gives you hit points back, 10% of your hit points back. Attacking results in some timed attacks called additions that can be leveled up. And you can transform into powerful forms known as Dragoons, and there's mechanics behind that as well. So there are some things to separate this from other JRPGs. Of course, you do have a world map that you don't get to explore. You just have point to point, but it kind of opens as a world map because there's random battles in between things. And of course, there's areas that you navigate as you would in many a role-playing game. Okay, so I will stop talking at this point. Shane, you have been relatively quiet for this. I understand
Shocker.
why.
I know.
Yeah, the plot hasn't exactly been your strong suit for this episode. So how about you open this up with the gameplay for us?
Yeah. So I will say that right out the gate, I expected to hate this because I generally am not the biggest fan of quick time event style gameplay. I usually think it's lazy, if I'm being honest. I'm glad that the trend died for the most part. The early to mid 2000s were a dark time for us all. But you know what? I feel like this game kind of did it right for the most part. I didn't hate it. I actually kind of enjoyed it. Obviously, the purpose behind this, right, is to make the turn-based combat that you would traditionally see in a JRPG be more engaging. Because one of the, arguments against turn-based RPGs that you hear all the time is that they are boring as shit because you're just basically navigating a menu. That's kind of the entirety of the gameplay. For some of us, that's totally fine. That doesn't bother me. I like it, but I can see, maybe the desire to make things a little bit more, flashy, like add a little zest, a little spice to the mix. And it's not perfect. And also playing on the PS Store version because it's like a port and et cetera, I feel like there was a little bit of input lag, and I don't know if that's just the game. Like, I don't know if that was also present in the original release or not, but once you kind of like figure out that that lag period, I was able to pretty much nail the additions more or less every time. No, overall, I actually really enjoyed the gameplay mechanics. I like the fact that there isn't this like overwhelming amount of like magic spells that are cryptically named and you have no fucking idea what they're supposed to do. Like, a lot of that was very streamlined / stripped down. Like, most of the magic-y type things are generally going to be like consumable items rather than actual spells that, cost mana or whatever. So for the most part, I think I like that change. I personally didn't find myself using those items all that often anyway. Especially when you get your Dragoon forms, like once you're able to build up that, SP and just transform, that's pretty much what I was doing the whole time. You do get some magic spells as they're labeled as a Dragoon, but they're more like, you use it like once per transition and that's it. And I don't know. I think I like the layout of it more than what you would get with, a lot of other traditional JRPGs. So I think there were some smart decisions made with that. I enjoyed the way that it kind of took a slightly different stance on a lot of those things. I mean, I don't love the button mashing that you have to do for some of those, like the items where you just have to slam the X button like 1,000 times or whatever. But
I had a turbo button.
That, oh, well, cool. I'm happy for you. I did not.
I'm happy for me too.
Yeah. Congratulations on cheating. But yeah, I mean, other than that, no, I actually, surprisingly, I was more into it than I thought I was going to be.
That's interesting to hear. I think I have similar feelings. Rick, what did you think?
Oh, I love this battle system. It's it's one of my favorite JRPG battle systems. I think it's a blast. I echo a lot of what Shane said. I also don't like the mashing for like the boosting for those spells like you do with like GFs and FF8. The additions, even if there is some like latency, shout out to Omi, I think the input window for them is fairly forgiving. You can be kind of early. You can anticipate it. You can be right on time. You can be a little bit late, not a lot, but a teensy bit. And with additions too, like I really love the addition system. I really do. And you can see it evolving out of what Super Mario JRPG was trying to do. Super Mario RPG. What's cool about the addition system is they have built-in counters with some of the additions. Not every single one, but as you're leveling up, you're gaining new additions that are doing more hits that will gain you more SP, that will do more damage. But some of them have counter possibilities. What I think is unfortunate is some of the additions, the button presses are spaced together very tightly. And when counter opportunities arise, you have to press a different button. You have to press circle instead of X. And on some of the earlier counter additions that you get, it's not a big deal, particularly with Dart. Like his additions are generally pretty easy to do. But some of the other ones, particularly Albert and Rose, and one of Haschel's specifically, they are so close together that I never felt like I could get there in time to do the counter. And it did get fairly frustrating. That aside, I adore this battle system. It's one of my favorites. I wish Magic would have been there as it is normally. Yeah, kind of. I didn't use the items all too much either, which is unfortunate because you sure are going to be picking up a shitload of them. Yeah. And surprise, you have a limited inventory to 64 items. By the way,
64?
64 or 68. It's one of the two. Yeah.
I had 32.
Maybe this is part of the ROM hack I was using. Oops.
That's fine. I only had 30. Yeah. In the PlayStation 1 version, it's 32.
Well.
Yeah, I also only had 32.
That was the ROM hack. But even then, I felt like I didn't have enough slots because like your potions don't stack. If you want 5 potions, that's 5 slots. So you've got to. You really should be using those magic spells, which is unfortunate. I don't feel like there was a ton of reason to, but they can be pretty powerful. The Dragoons too, like I thought these were a lot of fun to use, especially once you start getting the abilities for each party member, which kind of makes up for that like lack of class system and lack of like magic affinity. Once you start getting new spells, you start to see, Shayna is like, yes, I know it's Shauna probably, but I've said Shayna since I was a kid. It's Zidane. It's Shayna. I can't help it.
It's Titus.
Well, I've come around on Titus. I did call him Titus all my life, but I've come around. But maybe I just like those long vowels, you know what I mean? But Shauna, whatever her name is, like she becomes the healing tank. Like she is an OP healer. Albert/Lavitz has a nice mix with Rose Storm giving you like a serious defense buff, but he also has some offensive abilities. Dart is just the offensive tank. Like everything he does deals massive damage. It's really exciting. Plus, like I'm a big sucker for transformations. I loved Power Rangers. I loved Sailor Moon. I'm a big fan of this kind of thing. Yeah, I'll wrap up my thoughts to not keep us here for too long. I love the battle system. It's a lot of fun. The load times and the animations are egregious. I use and abuse the fast forward toggle like crazy.
Yeah, I agreed. The animations, my God. Okay, actually, wait a minute. That's presentation. I want to get to that later because I actually have something to say about that too. But on the additions, I just wanted to add on that I was curious, and I was talking to Chris about this. Obviously, I didn't get far enough into the game to test this out myself, but I was doing some digging earlier today to kind of try to figure this out. And from what I gathered, I think I was mostly right in that maybe not all of them, but at least a decent amount of the addition abilities that you get relatively earlier on in the game do and can scale fairly well throughout most, if not all, of the game experience, which I think is like great because they give you, a handful of different ones that you get and unlock over the course of the game for each one of the characters. And really, like, the primary difference is how many button presses you have to successfully hit in a row in order to like properly activate the whole thing. Obviously, they have differing like damage percentage, like scale values, etc., like how much SP they refund and some like tertiary effects, whatever. But there are some that you can use throughout like the whole game, like the spinning cane for Lavitz, right? Like that one is it can never be countered. So like that still has usefulness throughout. And that's one that you get more or less right away. Like that's pretty awesome. And the fact that they leveled the more that you use them, it really does. It's sort of not entirely, but it does a pretty good job of avoiding this common RPG issue where early skills become phased out and irrelevant as you go on. I mean, that's something that like Diablo 2 always had that problem where like you'd only put like 1 point into an early skill just so you could get to a better one later, which is like, then why even have the skill in the first place? It was and probably is still a fairly rampant MMO issue, right? Where it's like, oh, well, I had Fireball at level 1, but now I have Firestorm and I never use Fireball in my damage rotation because why the hell would I? Like, so I think this does a pretty good job of sort of mitigating some of that, but it also helps for those of us that don't want to try to nail 7 button presses in a row, that there are still some of the earlier ones where it's just like, I just have to hit like 2 or 3 and you just get real good at that. And it's still at least viable. So that's huge to me.
That's kind of a good early strategy in the game too, is like, if you know a boss is coming up, if you hit that conspicuously placed save point in a dungeon, the strategy to do is to switch to your strongest edition, not the newest one. Your newest one might give you more hits, but if you've already leveled up that earlier one and it's doing more damage percent, then that's going to do more damage against the boss. Exactly right, Shane. Now, eventually, like down the line, I mean, it would behoove you to level up the editions that have more hits because they'll ultimately give you more damage and more SP, which is important if you want to level up your Dragoon stuff. But I mean, switching to the most powerful edition that you have, even if it's not the flashiest, like, that's going to get you through those bosses.
So this is where I'm going to jump in on additions, because largely I agree with all of you. And one of the things that Shane said, going back to his point, is a point that is brought up very early in the game when they first teach you about additions, is that the very first edition, if you want to stick with it, you can stick with it. It still has value. They said it like, this is as advanced as you want it to be. No matter how far you go in the game, every single one of these can be used if you want to. It's just that as you get better, you can, there are different options for you that also could potentially be better. And also when you look at the additions, they have various benefits. Some of them specialize in growing your SP, and your SP goes towards building your Dragoon levels, which allows you to transform into a Dragoon, or your Dragoon gauge. And yes, actually, it does improve your Dragoon levels. The more SP you get, the higher Dragoon levels get, which means that you get more additional spells. So actually, picking additions that build your SP may be more valuable as you're trying to build your Dragoon levels, as opposing to something that's pure power. Something to consider. It's all play style choice. One of the other things that is good about additions is just how powerful they can get. But to Rick's point, where he's talking about how precise they can be, my issue with them with the later additions is just how it felt rather inconsistent from edition to edition, and how precise that button press would end up being. Like, sometimes I felt I had more wiggle room with some editions, and sometimes I felt like I had less. And this is playing, of course, on my on my gatekeepy, nose up snobbish CRT that I was playing it on. But I felt like sometimes I could get away with a button press in a similar position to where the square came into the inner square, and sometimes it just wouldn't do it. And it didn't feel consistent across the board. Now, could that be a skill issue? I'm willing to admit that. But it didn't feel right 100% of the time. And I was swapped between controllers. I had a wireless controller, the Retro Fighters Defender, and I also went back to an original PlayStation analog controller, not the DualShock, the one right before it. I had mixed success with both. Now, in terms of transforming into Dragoons and how additions went in items, first of all, magical items, I would sell those as soon as I could. I did not see value in them whatsoever, especially because I only had 32 slots. I'd rather have healing items. There was only one magic item I wanted, and that's one that I got towards the end of the game, the magical city of Iglis. The way that city ends is pretty painful. But you get this item called like the Psychic Bomb X. And the one good thing about some of these items is they have a feature called Repeat. And that means that you can use them in a battle. And if you use them, you get to use them again in the next battle. But you can only use them once per battle. And they have like power up, power down, speed up, speed down. This was a magical item that you could use repeatedly with a multi-function attack. It's very useful on a lot of the later bosses. It was a great item. But aside from that, like, I would just get rid of them. And one of the reasons why is that while I would build my additions, for almost every boss, save one, I realized that the key strategy was to go into there with all your Dragoon gauges built up. So you can go into special mode. And then as soon as I was in special mode, I'd use Dart. I'd just do his final blast attack over and over again. And because my other characters typically were not as on high of a Dragoon level, they would convert back to people again, because you can't use items in Dragoon mode. And then at that point, I would use an MP healing item in order to boost Dart's MP back up so you continue to do final blast. Because the timing for the Dragoon attacks, which are also timed attacks, the timing's a little weirder for them than they are for the additions. So like sometimes using those magical attacks as Dragoon is more useful than just purely attacking. But that just became like the fundamental use of my boss battles until much later in the game. And that's when my additions were built up, and the additions became like seriously powerful, because there was like one Meru has a addition that has a 600% power boost if you nail all the attacks. And on to Meru, you said that Miranda/Shanna was an OP healer. If you pair Meru with one of her additions called Cool Boogie, which gives her 200 SP upon completion, and she has an item called a Pretty Hammer, which boosts your SP, so she can get to like max level within one attack. She has a healing ability as a level 2 ability, which costs 20 MP, and she's faster. Her base speed is like higher than Shayna's too. So if you pair her with Dancer's Rings, she can just do turns all the time. So it's like managing your character stats and realizing who's powerful and who's not. Like Albert is a fantastic addition because of Rose Storm, but like when you realize that the strengths of all the other characters, you quickly realize that's pretty much the only characters that can really destroy and fuck shit up are Dart, Meru, Albert, and Haschel. And once you get past that, it's kind of like preference. Like, I don't want Albert in my party. I want Miranda, or I want Kongol for whatever reason, for all you Kongol lovers. But it just becomes this isn't like necessarily a criticism, because I think you could say this a lot about other RPGs, is once you understand the systems, it becomes rather rudimentary and formulaic in your approach to a lot of battles. And I don't think Legend of Dragoon is any different in that approach, save for one boss. And I wish more bosses were like that. And that boss, because I was so used to the formula, I started raging. I'm like, how dare this game? But, in reality, it's probably a good change of pace where it punished you for just automatically going into your Dragoon mode.
Yeah, I think stepping back for a moment, I just wanted to add that as far as items are concerned, the only ones I ended up keeping were the ones that could do AoE damage. Those were the only ones that felt like useful to me. The rest of them I just like immediately sold.
Yeah. Rick?
I do think one positive spin that you could put on this is that you really can beat this game with any combination of people, or at least that's the general consensus among the Legend of Dragoon subreddit. You can pretty much just use whoever you like, which is, that's a plus to this game. You're not going to suffer if you really like someone like a Marant, for example, even though he's kind of useless. Final Fantasy IX pool for all you Final Fantasy IX heads out there.
Salamander, the most disappointing, Amarant. Most disappointing Final Fantasy character of all time. He looked so cool, and he was so worthless. Ah, God, awful. But you're right. Like any combo you can go with. The only off-putting one I think is your Shanna Miranda, because she doesn't have an addition. She's pure SP. So in many ways, she's the easiest one to build her Dragoon levels for.
And her level 1 Dragoon spell, if I remember correctly, revives. It doesn't just heal, it revives, which is that's a big deal. When the item economy is 32, that's a big deal.
It's 1 or 2. I know that her level 5 spell damages the enemy. It's like a Phoenix spell.
Mm-hmm.
It damages, heals, and revives, like the Silver Dragon spell, which is awesome.
It's one of the two. Within her first 3 abilities, you get one that revives and heals one person, and another that just does a lot of healing for your whole party. So it's Meru can do damage and do pretty good healing, and she's faster, but Shayna is where the good healing is at, you know what I mean? And she does have some light attacks that can damage the enemy too. And Miranda too, I guess.
But the thing is that it's still preference. You can still get away with either.
Oh yeah.
And if you go through a strategy, it'll recommend either or. It's all about what do you feel more comfortable doing. And I think that is a boon. That is a good benefit. I do have to ask though, Rick, did you end up getting the game breaking armors?
No, I don't know what that is.
So there's some game breaking armors. They're called the Legend Casque and the Armor of Legend. This is where, since we're in gameplay, I can bring that up here. This is where kind of the game pissed me off a little bit in terms of its disc design, but the items are in one of the same place where I think it's Lohan, where you buy Kongol's Dragoon gemstone. And then the other one's in Leningrad, I think the name is the city. And every time you go in there, because you're on disc 4 by the time you can really get it, you have to swap the disc to the disc that the city is in. So it'd be hey, you're in this city, swap to disc 2. Hey, you're in this city, swap to disc 3. And I hate this. But those armors, if you spend, they cost 10 grand. And by the way, money and experience, not something you're getting in a random encounter in this game. Believe me. But you drop 10 grand on these items, and essentially the Armor of Legend boosts up your physical defense to stupid levels. And then you get the legendary casque or whatever it's called, and that boosts your magic defense and evasion up to ridiculous levels. So if you have a character with both the helmet, the armor, and an item called the Phantom Shield, which reduces your damage by 50%, they essentially become a god.
Jeez, that is insane. I got some kind of special armor for Rose by fighting this optional encounter, but I never had enough money to buy that fancy stuff.
That's why it's considered game breaking. And apparently fans of the games are don't buy this armor. It's your first time playing it. I'm I'm never playing this again, so I'm definitely buying it. I don't care. But that's kind of long as the short of that. You can really, there's definitely ways to break this game if you want to. Do I like the additions? You know what? I think they're less intrusive than what Paper Mario does. I didn't like it when Paper Mario did it. specifically the 1,000-Year Door, but for some reason it doesn't bother me here. And I can't explain why. Maybe it's because the enemies don't scale, but that's kind of my thoughts. Anything else we need to add to the gameplay? I know we wanted to talk about the battle animations.
I got nothing else.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm trying to give Shane some space. I feel like I'm stepping in front of him a lot.
No, not really. You're fine.
I will comment that the battle animations, I know it's been said before, because you're asking me because I played this on original hardware, Rick. The loading times I did not find inoffensive because I'm used to that with PS1 games, like the Final Fantasy battles, Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9. They all had that really slow loading to get into the battle. The problem I had was specifically more with the boss fights, because everything had to be
it's a big production.
Every single spell had to be a thing. It's a big production, man. And so a battle that probably should have lasted 10 minutes ends up lasting 30 because every move needs flair. Every single one.
Yeah.
So that would be my complaint on that front.
When I mentioned loadings, I chiefly meant loading, getting into the battle and getting out of the battle. My philosophy with JRPGs like this or like Xenosaga is if I'm in a random battle, like I'm going to use that fast forward liberally. I don't do it in boss battles as much unless I've seen the same freaking move that Lloyd does where it takes 35 seconds to play out. I'm just going to skip through that. But yeah, if I wasn't doing an addition in a random encounter, I was fast forwarding through it. It's just, this game is long enough as it is, man. This game is longer than it needs to be.
No, you're right. Do we want to talk about the padding? Because I don't think we're going to talk about it in graphics or audio. Because Shane, like where you're at, you're not at the end of disc 1 yet.
Okay.
This is a 60-hour game.
Oh yeah, no, I know. Yeah, there was no way I was going to get through this whole damn thing. Like I knew that, which I mean, that's a fucking death knell for the Persona 4 Golden episode, but it's, whatever, it's fine. We'll make it work somehow.
We're not bitter.
No, I mean, I don't know where you guys are going next, but yes, I totally agree with the animation shit, just because like it's cool the first time. And I guess maybe if I'm like just going right into presentation, then I apologize. But like,
let's just do it. Because I mean, we already kind of discussed the padding with the plot and we said the pacing was shit.
Yeah.
So, well, not shit. It's just interesting.
Sure.
Let's go ahead and go into the presentation. Let's talk about the graphics. What you got, Shane?
Yeah, well, so the thing is it's kind of a love-hate relationship in a way, because like I actually really like what they did with the camera angles, like the fact that not every battle is the exact same like static viewpoint that a lot of games just tend to go with. It was like, and I don't know if it's randomized or what have you, but different battle encounters would have like different camera angles. Like sometimes you'd be sort of over the shoulder with a more like traditional like view of your party, sort of from like an angle from the back, and then you'd have a view that's like directly looking down on the battle arena, so that you're looking at everybody's heads, like the top of their heads. Sometimes it's from the enemy perspective, and you're looking at your party. So I just thought that was really cool that they kind of added that in just to add some additional, sort of flavor to the battles. However,
you can change it too, right?
No, I didn't even bother. I let the wind take me where it wants, Chris. And
that's fine. Let it blow. It will blow you.
But that's, man, if only. And I did like the cinematic sort of like sweeping entrances into the battles. Like it did, and I guess that's a good word for it. It does feel very cinematic in a lot of ways. However, I really wish there was like an option to just say skip that shit after the first time. Like that'd be awesome. Where it's just like, oh, okay, that was really neat that they sort of swooped the camera in and you could see the background, and then it shows the enemies, and man, that's real cool. Okay, don't ever fucking do that again though, because man, that takes forever. And there isn't, and I did not have the luxury of a fast forward button, so I was just watching that shit every time. It gets old. I think that's like unintentional, or maybe intentional, I don't know. Padding right there, just that adds up over time, man.
Yeah. Rick, what do you think, presentation graphics wise?
I love it. I mean, I'm such a sucker for this era of JRPGs. I love the pre-rendered backgrounds. They look so like brusque, picturesque. like paintings, and I like it a lot. I really, really do. This kind of, to me, feels like a stepping stone between Final Fantasy 7 and 8 in terms of just how the sprites and the backgrounds are presented. You know, like FF8 is some of the best graphical design the PS1 has. FF7 was groundbreaking because it did it first. And this is kind of between the two, you know? I really, really like it. I like the cinematic aspect. I agree with both of you. I wish I could skip it because I've only got so many hours in a day. I'm 30 or 40 years old. I don't need this. I've got shit to do. So again, like,
I'm sorry, was that a covert Aqua Teen Hunger Force reference?
You know it, baby.
Love it. I love it. I knew I liked this guy for a reason.
That's one of my favorite shows of all time. Yes, I mean, I wish you could skip it. It's very cool. I wish you could skip it though. Yeah, I don't want to keep us too long. I love this. I love how it looks.
I also think this game looks really good. In fact, that's one of the things that that stuck out when I first started playing this game. Do I think it looks as good as a Squaresoft game? I do not. I think that actually the pre-rendered backgrounds are a slight, and I mean slight, I don't mean like a big difference. I think it's a slight step down. They're not as good as what you were getting in Final Fantasy IX at the same time.
Oh my God, this was at the same time as FF9. You're right. Oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay.
And also the character models are also nowhere near as good. What I will say about the character models is I do think the character model animations were really nice. But if you compare this to Final Fantasy IX, it's there's a noticeable gap. And most of the time I would kind of excuse it and be like, okay, but who's Squaresoft? This is Sony. This is not like a small production studio. I think some criticism can be levied on them just a little bit. They had the financing. This is their console. It's not like they didn't have the resources or the people that could have made something comparable. So I think like there should have been a little bit of an expectation to be right there. Even the CG cutscenes weren't as good. Now, of course, it comes to the resources you could afford, you could bring on as a team. And prior to this, Sony, I think, was only doing Arc the Lad in terms of this genre. For a like quote unquote virgin effort into this field, I do think it does a very commendable job. I also think like when you look at the models in the cutscenes, you look at their faces, you look at how they're overall designed. When they're not in their map overworld models, which looks very reminiscent of Final Fantasy VII from time to time, and no, that is not a compliment. I like the characters themselves, like when they go into that mode, they do look good. There are times when this game just looks utterly brilliant. And that goes to the battles too. Like the battles look very nice as well. How you can shift in real time. The fluidity of the models for the enemies as well is very, very nice. So there are some high points. However, I'm not going to like hold back on my criticisms of where they were, what the time this was released and what should have been expected. I think they could have done a little bit better, but overall, when you go back, everything kind of blends. So it's not something you're going to like throw up at by any means. It still does this job very well. Other than that, it sounds like it's time to move on to the audio presentation, what we think of that. I'll kick this off because I've seen Rick say he loves it. I'll let him speak to that. But I want to be upfront about my thoughts about the audio here. I hated it at first. The audio is unorthodox. I'm talking about the soundtrack mostly because I'll talk about the voice acting in a moment. It took me a while to get into the audio. At the beginning of the game, I hated it. And by the end of the game, I was like, I want to hear more of this bass line after I win this battle. Yeah, I want to try and time this battle at the perfect time to mesh with the battle music. Yeah. I was vibing with it, man. Like I was really getting down with this music by the end of the game, which is weird because at the beginning, it turned me off. I wanted nothing to do with it. And then I was just like, more bass, please. More bass, please. Yeah. So the towns, some of them were okay. The castle theme got on my nerves really quick. But overall, yeah, I think the soundtrack was good. I think it was very, very good. What did you think, Rick?
Yeah, I think saying that I loved it is maybe a little bit strong. I liked it a lot. I liked it more than I was expecting. I was looking this up earlier today. This game had two composers, a fellow by the name of Dennis Martin, who did the bulk of it, and then somebody else named Takeo Miratsu. Interestingly, they never met during this whole production, which is very fascinating to me.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I was listening to some of this OST today. There's a lot of it that's just okay, and there's a lot of it that is interestingly really cool. And I wasn't thinking about this earlier, but now that, with your succinct summarization earlier, Chris, I was thinking of like Greek mythology. A lot of this is invocative of like ancient ritual kind of deal. You get a lot of percussion, synth and string patches, and like vocal patches that really evoke a sense of like ancient ritual, or like the divine gods or something, or like I'm trying not to say like ancient Egyptian, even though sometimes it goes there, and I mean that derogatorily. Overall, I really like it. The menu theme is an all-timer. Like, come on, that's so groovy.
Yes. Yeah, it is.
The battle themes too.
I hated it at first too.
Oh, really?
I did. I didn't like it. And by the end of the game, that was another thing like I grew to really like. At first, I was like, this is so dumb. Just stay with it's halting my loading time. It's loading this music. And then by the end, I'm like, yeah, I loved it. It grew on me.
There's some of the battle themes too. I like them quite a bit. They've got a lot of that driving bass, like you were saying. It's unfortunate because around this same time, Square released Man with the Machine Gun in FF8, and that's just the greatest battle music of all time. So it's like, how do you go from there?
Yes.
No, I mean, a lot of it is forgettable, or at least I thought so, but there are some high points. There's one track that's in the very beginning that has like, I can't even think of it, like some kind of rudiments or flams or rolls or whatever on like a tom drum. Ruined Celis is what I was thinking of. I didn't think I was right because I thought I was thinking of Final Fantasy VI.
You know what's cool? I don't know if you noticed this, but some of the enemies actually move along to the beat of the battle music.
I did not notice that. This is news. This is news to me. I'm hearing this for the first time.
So there's a part that you can grind for money, and it's called 00 parts. It's right outside of Lohan. But there's this one enemy who's carrying a pillar on his shoulder, and he's swinging his arm up very exaggeratedly. And if you look at the way he's swinging its arm, it's directly in line with the beat of the battle music.
Well, here's a better question. Do you think they actually plan that?
That is a very good question. I'm not going to answer that because I have no idea, but it coincidentally does that, and I love it. It's like he's dancing to the battle music, and I really hope that's the case. I want it to be true. How about that?
I will say the world map theme took some time for me to get used to. It comes off as very kind of brash.
Yes.
I don't want to say grating, but it's a stylistic choice, and you hear it enough that it's like Stockholm Syndrome. You warm up to it, but wouldn't have been my first choice for a world map theme. But it's not the worst thing in the world.
No. It could be worse.
That's interesting. I actually kind of really liked that one. I mean, I think the flip side of that is that you're, unlike a lot of other RPGs, you don't generally spend a lot of time on the world map in this game anyway.
No, I would agree with that.
Although I will say I love the fact that I wasn't, because I thought I was going to be the weird one that was like, yo, that menu music is fucking fire though. So I'm glad I'm not the only one that thought that. Like, I don't even know what it is about it. I don't know. It just hits the right kind of vibe. Like I in a weird way, I kind of looked forward to opening the menu mostly for that reason.
Yeah, I agree with that. I liked it. Can we talk about the voice acting though?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I want to talk about the voice acting.
Sure.
I'm going to encapsulate my thoughts about the voice acting in one scene where you have, they're talking about the Dragon campaign, which is the battle between the humans and the Winglies. And it's talking about the Black Monster. And you have this fairly decently acted performance from one of the voice actors. And this is the narrator and explaining the history of the Dragon campaign. And he gets to things like, and every 108 years, there comes something down with hate, and it's called the Black Monster. And then the voice actor for Dart blurts out, like Timmy from South Park, and goes, "Monster!" And then he keeps and then he keeps talking. And by the way, the voice acting pretty much hits that level the entire game. It doesn't get better. The final scene is comically bad too. Like, if you love bad voice acting, this is the game. This is the game for you. It's a mess. There's not a lot of it, but when it's there, it is incredibly bad. And I both love and hate it. It's terrible. What y'all think?
I was not expecting Timmy to make a reference here. That's good.
It's just, yeah, he just goes, and this is the Black Monster. Monster!
The ROM that I was using had the Japanese voices, which are better. They're better.
Okay.
I'm not going to pass judgment on them too much because, like, in truth, I kind of just let it wash over me and read it. No, the Japanese voice acting is better. I don't remember any outbursts like that off the top of my head. Rose in particular, I thought was better in the Japanese version, at least from what I remember. But
more and more.
The English is so rough, dude.
It's bad. I'll say they tried. They probably tried. Shane, what did you hear?
I mean, I don't know that I have anything to add to that. I think you encapsulated it pretty well. It's generally not great. I guess the best thing I could say is that most of the cutscenes and in-game cinematics, if you want to call them that, don't have any. So there you go.
I like that anytime you do an addition in battle, they will like Power Rangers it up and shout out the move that they're doing. So like for years, I had Lavitz and Albert's Gust of Wind Dance stuck in my head, or Dart yelling Volcano, and it's a lot.
Spinning cane.
Yeah. It's the same in the Japanese Kuda Boogie, or like whatever they're shouting out.
Cool Boogie.
It's fine. It's cute. It's Power Rangers. I like it.
I like Meru's voice actor because it's cute. Sorry. Darts is so overdramatic. It chews the scenery. Like, I remember Madness Hero, and he's just like, there's such a flair to it. He's like, Madness Hero! Like, he trails off. Like, there's like a tremolo at the very end of him saying hero. I'm like, what is going on? This is great. I hate it. It's so good. Darts voice actor, whoever you are. If you still have work, I want to know what you do because I want to watch it. I'm very interested to see how you progressed because you did a fantastic job here in Legend of Dragoon, at least for me. Maybe not on an actual objective level, but from a subjective one, I'm definitely enjoy it. Is there anything else either of you want to add before we get to the pontifications?
No, I don't think so. While the voice acting generally was not great, I agree that I unironically enjoyed the the Power Ranger callouts during battle. I thought that was pretty great.
Yeah,
but no, overall pretty
good. They don't do it when they transform into Dragoons, though.
I mean, what the fuck? What are they gonna say? Dragoon? Like what? I don't.
Why not?
Now you're just going too far, Chris. That's too
morphin'
much.
Time.
See, what I really wanted was like a Dragoon Megazord. Then we'd be in business.
Oh yeah, the Super Dragon.
Dart's voice actor for the English is John Butterfield. I'm on his IMDb.
Yes,
he's got one credit.
Uh-huh.
He's known for The Legend of Dragoon. Did you know? He directed a play of A Midsummer's Night Dream. And that's it. That's his page.
Stellar.
John Butterfield, you are a hero.
He burned too bright.
Oh, it looks like he's part of a podcast series, or was. There's a credit here: Monsters, Madness, and Magic. What is that? It's got a 5 out of 10. Ooh.
Oh
no,
that's not good. Well, now I need to hear this. I want him to speak in Dart's voice the entire time, or else it's not worth it. But what is worth it is talking about what our patrons have to say about the Legend of Dragoon. And if you want to contribute to these episodes and let us know what you think about our game du jour, all you got to do is just head on over to our Patreon. It's for as little as $1 a month. You can contribute to the conversation here in this section of the show called Patron Pontifications, which I have already said. So we will start out with Soha. And Soha says, I haven't played it, but another server I'm in has this as an inside joke, and I think it's super funny. And he put a comment where they all have this joke about how they think Legend of Dragoon is trash. I know Rick saw it and he made a comment about it to me.
Yeah, I wanted to clown on Soha a lot, publicly, but Soha also follows my show on the socials, and I don't want to alienate my listeners.
Okay.
So thank you, Soha.
It's a funny comic. I wish I could. On an audio podcast, this doesn't work. So thank you, Soha. Appreciate it.
All right. Next up, we've got Lyle, who says, you're not going to fool me. Final Fantasy's taught me never to trust dragons. They're always lying and turning evil. Never played it. 6 out of 10. Smooches. Thank you, Lyle. I appreciate that.
Lethco of the Afterglow podcast says, one of those games I've always wanted to play, but never did because there's only so many 40-plus hour JRPGs I can play before my wife says I'm neglecting her.
Good point. I never get that. But maybe that's a bad thing. All right, next is Lucas from Game Over Hell on YouTube. And Lucas says, for many years before I played Drakengard, I used to get it and Legend of Dragoon mixed up. Oh, and I have never played Legend of Dragoon. I also didn't vote for it. Had Drakengard been in the poll instead, however, I wouldn't have voted for it either. Anyway, looking forward to hearing if you think Legend of Dragoon is worth playing. Right? Thank you, Lucas. Appreciate it.
At no point did I know where that comment was going.
Well, I also appreciate you not theoretically voting for Drakengard because fuck that game. All right. Next up, we've got Keith Gasper of the Still Alive? Yeah, Main Quest podcast. Yeah, it's alive. It's kicking.
Very alive. I was just
so
on
alive.
It.
I don't know what you do. I don't keep tabs.
I just guessed it on it.
Keith says, unlike all these fake gamers, I did play Temu Final Fantasy VII. I mean, The Legend of Dragoon. While I agree with the reevaluation this game's got in the past few years, I still think it's okay for what it is. The battle system is unique, if not flawed. The cutscenes are very of its time, but still have that warm PlayStation blanket I'm looking for in a JRPG, and the voice acting is corny as hell. The story is incredibly derivative, but that doesn't mean it isn't executed well. If you can get past the horrible localization, there's some great character moments sprinkled throughout the game. The game is also way too long. Way to take a great idea and spread it too thin. Aggressively average is what this is. And it doesn't even come close to the RPGs that were even released the same year that it came out, let alone stand out amongst everything else that came out that decade. Also, sneaky edit. Also, can't wait to hear what you think of these names. Just remember, King Albert was a prince once. I didn't think about that, but thank you for that now.
Indeed he was. And I know, like, the RPGs that came out that year that don't compare, like Crazy Taxi.
Hell yeah.
We've got Masked Keaton. Here's what Keaton says. Currently playing through it on Tuesday nights with our group, and while we aren't very far, we're enjoying it. The healing while you defend feature is great, and the combo combat makes each attack important. That's cool. Taking the Mario RPG approach to make things interesting.
Indeed.
I'm so jealous of folks that have a weekly game night. I just wanted to say that.
I am too. I agree.
I used to have one of those.
All right. Next is from Alt, who says, when I was young, I owned a demo disc from a magazine. Yes, kids, that was something you missed. R.I.P. That included a video of The Legend of Dragoon referencing a secret regarding a ghost ship. And it blew my mind. But I never got a chance to play the game until now. I've been pushing JRPGs from the past off far too long, and this game is becoming comfort food for me. Now I'm finally in the midst of an ongoing playthrough, and so far I'm loving it. The localization is pretty awful, so I'll probably swap to the fan translation starting from disc 2. The combat timing mechanic is simplistic enough so far, and it seems like experience is backloaded onto boss fights, which reminds me of Paper Mario. I love that the arrow above you is an encounter rate indicator as well as you are here, like the other PS1 Final Fantasy games have. The music on the world map so far is different, like it belongs in something like Gauntlet Dark Legacy or a Mortal Kombat game, something more edgy and Western-like. It's hard for me to explain the emotions it triggers for me, but graphics-wise, goddamn, this game has some pretty pre-rendered backgrounds. I've included 2 reference images, and they truly rival Final Fantasy VIII's in my opinion. I'm excited to play more of it, and then check out the episode when I'm finished. Thank you, Alt. He makes a good point about the indicator arrow we didn't bring up. I like that. I really did.
He brings up random battles too with that. Can I ask, is this a ROM thing that was just a me issue, or were the random encounters for you two just absolutely out of control?
I didn't feel like I got enough of them.
Yeah, I didn't, and I hate random encounters generally, and I didn't feel like they were too egregious.
All right. Well, I'm realizing maybe I did not play the true Legend of Dragoon experience then. Okay.
I'd have to go to the cutting room floor. I didn't do that for this episode because I'm not really too concerned about the differences between the 2 versions, but considering I read that Shuhei Yoshida thought that the North American version was the definitive version, I wonder if that was one of the balancing efforts that they did in the localization.
Oh, yeah, good point.
I have to check.
All right, and last but certainly not least, we have Matt, aka Stormageddon, of the Fun and Games and Reignite podcast, who says, never got around to playing this one. Have always been curious, though. Anyway, adore y'all and the podcast. Keep kicking ass. Well, I can't really complain with that. Thank you, Matt. We appreciate it.
Yeah, and love the work that you do as well.
Indeed.
Okay, now we get to put in our word on whether or not this game holds up today. And as is tradition, myself and Shane will go first and let the guest have the final word on whether or not we think this game holds up. I think I will kick this one off. And I will say yes. I think The Legend of Dragoon holds up. One thing I will say, though, is that playing through The Legend of Dragoon, especially the first 2 discs, the pacing and how it is kind of bloated. In fact, it's really bloated in comparison to how it speeds up. The pacing gets much better in the later discs, as well as the localization makes me appreciate Final Fantasy VIII a lot more. I don't know why I'm saying that. I think I really like Final Fantasy VIII a lot more now, which I don't know. To many would sound like a condemnation of this game, but I think this makes me realize how well polished games were coming out of Squaresoft at that time. Because this game, technically looking at it does so many things right from a presentation standpoint, from a gameplay standpoint, and it's like it's better than a lot of PS1 games in terms of what it needs to do. And in terms of a JRPG, there are some things that I think aren't going to make everybody happy. I think the addition system might turn some people off. The prolonged animations are probably going to grate some people, perhaps. The terrible localization will definitely drive some people away, and certainly the padding. But I think like I have this renewed appreciation for even Square's lesser efforts, and how good they really were. Because I can't sit here and call this game a bad game. It's not a bad game. I think that if you do like JRPGs, you definitely should go back and give this a look. And that's why I say it holds up. But man, I walked away. There was a time I was playing this and I was like, we are way too harsh on Final Fantasy VIII. I don't know why that thought process occurred to me, but it is what it is. But yes, go play The Legend of Dragoon. It is a game that you should enjoy. It's definitely a part of Sony's history. I'd love to see an official retranslation, maybe a remaster of sorts. That cleans a lot of things up. Maybe not a full-blown remake. I'm kind of against those and just as in general, unless they do something really creative with it. But I think this holds up on its own. So yes, this game holds up today. Shane?
Yeah, I'll try to be uncharacteristically succinct and just say that yes, I think it does, especially given that you can get it, on the PlayStation Store. It's one of those ones where it's not difficult to find or to play. There isn't really a barrier to entry like a lot of these where you'd have to get original hardware or go through the process of emulation. Like it's there. Like that's how I played it. I bought it on the PlayStation Store and played it on my PS4. So, I mean, you're going to get a lot of the, things that are sort of endemic to like this era of games, I guess. But I think that's for better and worse. Overall, it's still a very enjoyable experience, to the point where I've said this, and I don't know if I said it at the beginning, but like, I wish I had more time to continue playing it. I really do, because I was enjoying my time with it. And if it's at all possible, I might still try to keep playing it. But I got a certain persona shaped cloud looming over me right now, so probably not. But yeah, it holds up.
All right, so that's 2 out of 3. And Rick, take us home. Give us the final word.
Yeah, so I think we're at the point in the episode where we should have a full conversation about what we mean by holds up. And I would like to kick off this 45-minute conversation.
Yes, let's do it. We've got another hour to go.
No, I absolutely think it holds up so long as you approach it with the right expectations. Like if you approach this expecting a Final Fantasy 7.5 or 8.5, you're going to be disappointed. I mean, Square, say what you want about, how overhyped 7 is, or criticisms against 8, which I don't agree with. I love 8. They have the reputation that they have for a reason. So if you expect that from a completely different studio, sure, you're going to be disappointed. But if you're going in just for the love of the JRPG from the 90s aesthetic, with the way the backgrounds are rendered, the way the combat system works, the way the ideas the story plays with, and especially if you're looking to get lost in a world, the world building is something that Chris, I think it was you, pointed out, really terrific. Like you can get lost in the world that they were trying to build here. And I think if you were open to those sorts of things and you're okay with a story that's just fine, this is a very enjoyable experience. And if you're a 90s JRPG fan, absolutely play this. Now, I do think the convenience that you mentioned, Shane, is apt. I mean, I think that's relevant to point out. I do think folks should at least consider emulation. There are ROM hacks that sand down some of the rough edges, like the localization chiefly, and then also, save states and fast forwards. Also, shout out too, there is like a big remake project for this that's going on. I don't think it's finished, but they're kind of remaking it to run on PCs. It's called the Severed Chains Project. I don't think it's done. I don't know what all they're doing. There's a big website devoted to it. They've got the whole 4K 60 FPS true widescreen and all these features, but shout out to them. I'm sure that's going to be cool. I definitely think it does hold up today. Don't expect, a masterpiece, but it's a lot of fun for what it is. Great battle system, if you like that kind of thing. World building out the wazoo. You could do a lot worse. And, no funny quotes like "my father, you mean my dad" or Victor Ireland stuff, but it's a good time.
All right, so there you have it. That is all of us say it holds up. So go check out The Legend of Dragoon if you are so inclined and you have the time. It's right there for you. It's available on your PS5 or PS4 or whatever you got. And with that all being said, thank you so much for joining us once again, Rick. Your presence here has made the show immeasurably better. No one knows the life-changing experiences that happens when they have you on their show, and I'm glad I had the privilege of experiencing
I feel like you're making fun of me a little bit, but you're welcome. Thank you.
I'm not. I'm just being over dramatic. That's it. I love having you on the show. That's all I'm trying to say. I love having these conversations with you. I'm so glad you were able to stop by.
Well, I'm happy to be here too. I like talking to both of you quite a bit, and obviously I like the show a lot. So any chance to talk 90s JRPGs, I'm happy to take. And if it's with the two of you, well, hey, all the better.
Great. I thank you so much. And you know what? I love your show as well. And I know that at the time of recording, you're going through a series of episodes talking about the Outer Wilds. But if people want to listen to that, where can they go to check that out?
They can go wherever they get podcasts. You can find us wherever, whether that's Spotify, Apple Podcast Addict, whatever you like to do. I gently discourage YouTube just because that doesn't count into the metrics, but you can listen there too if you want. And you're right, we are going through Outer Wilds at the moment. It's all recorded, it's all done. That is I don't want to say a life-changing game, but it immediately rocketed into my top 3, top 5 of all time. It is a masterpiece. I love it so much. I'm hoping one day to do Legend of Dragoon on the show. I've got a guest lined up. It's just scheduling. You know how that goes. But maybe one day. You unfortunately cannot hear Shane on the show because we haven't had the pleasure. Although now that I've got my recording situation kind of situated at home a little bit better, maybe in the future. But if you wanted to hear Chris on the show, he has appeared, I think, at the time of recording more times than any other guest on the show. So you could close your eyes and throw a dart, and assuming you don't hit the wall or the cat, you might hit an episode with Chris on it. So you could check out Xenosaga or FF6 or a bunch of other shows.
It's always great to stop by your show as well, and I look forward to stopping by there in the near future. I have a feeling I'll be there to talk about a series of episodes I look forward to.
Yeah, a series of episodes for which you can blame only yourself or God.
Exactly, yes.
That's a hint.
Yes.
All right. Well, as far as we are concerned, we're glad that you're here. This happens to be your first time. We hope you enjoyed your stay, and maybe you want to stick around a while longer if we haven't, immediately. I mean, if we immediately scared you off, you're not even listening to this. I mean, it could be that we're just so loud and obnoxious at the beginning that it's just not your thing. In which case, that's okay. That's our litmus test. So, we've weeded them out, and all the crazies are still here, and we're fine with that. But we do have a whole lot of extra stuff out there, in case you didn't know. We are slowly but surely creeping up on that 10-year anniversary of the show, which is just crazy. And as such, we have hundreds, and I'm not being hyperbolic, it is just hundreds of episodes out there for you to listen to now. Years of content. And you know what? If you like it that much, and you're just voracious, right? You just go through all of it. There's nothing left. You've devoured it all. Well, have I got news for you, pal? Because there's even more at the Patreon. That's right. If you could even fathom that, there is more content to be had. For as little as $1, you can get yourself even more of us yapping at you. So consider that if that's your thing. We also do have a merch store where you can pick up some sweet threads. Or bumper stickers to definitely not slap on other people's cars. I would never condone that, but it would be funny. And also, we've got socials that we sometimes use, as well as a YouTube and a Twitch channel. So I'm trying to slowly but surely kind of back off on the prerequisite that Chris needs to talk about Twitch, because I feel like he's getting tired of it. So instead, I'm just going to throw it back over to him and say, is there anything that you'd like to add, Chris?
No, you can check us out on Sundays at 9 p.m. on Twitch or YouTube.
Son of a bitch, I'm trying to give you an out.
Do that, and we'll see you there. I think
I confused him. He doesn't know what to do now. Anyway,
you took that away from me.
I did. I hear it. See, this is what I get. I try to give options. I try to be considerate. That's what I get.
You're a horrible person, Shane. I hate you.
This is what 10 years will do to you.
I'll cry. I'm gonna cry.
All right. Well,
all falling apart.
While we look while we look into divorce lawyers, I guess
I'm taking it to the Matthews Bridge
in the saddest way possible. Oh man. Anyway, taking it to Matthews Bridge and then the St. John's River. All right, local humor. Anyway, with all of that being said, until next time,
play with your black monster joysticks. It's like he's dancing to the battle music, and I really hope that's the case. I want it to be true. How about that?
All right, well, I guess I'll jump on. All right.
I'm dead. I died.
Wait, what happened? Are you still there? Everybody here? Okay.
No.
Okay.
I'm
fantastic.
Here. Okay.
Shane here with a quick message. You know, the one rule Chris and I have always gone by regarding advertisements is this. It has to be something we use and can personally vouch for. If you know me, you know I love coffee. And Bones Coffee Company has been my go-to for home brewing for quite some time now. Their small batch beans come in an impressive variety of flavors like Mint Invaders from Chocolate Space, or Electric Unicorn, which I swear tastes exactly like Fruity Pebbles. And the best part? No added sugar or calories involved, just natural flavors infused right into the beans themselves. Build your own sample pack of 5 4-ounce bags to find out which flavors speak to you, or jump in head first with full 12-ounce bags. They've even got K-Cups. Step up your homebrew game with Bones Coffee by visiting bit.ly/RHPBones. That's bit.ly/RHPBONES.